Hey guys, John from Guitar Teacher's Guide here. Wanted to talk about a subject that I think a lot of guitar teachers think about and question whether they should do one or the other. The question is, should you teach guitar tab or should you teach guitar notation? If you're confused about what I'm talking about, guitar tab is where you have 6 lines on a piece of paper and there are numbers that go on those lines. The numbers represent the fret that you play and the line represents the specific string. So if you see a 1 on the top string, that means that your highest pitch E string, so the lowest one from your face, the lowest string, you play on the first fret. If you see a 13 on that string, you play the 13th fret. It's very much monkey see, monkey do. It's very simple. It's very, very effective for learning things quickly. If you're wanting to learn some lead solo parts or something like that, it's fantastic. Sometimes more intricate things, if you're playing metal or something like that, sometimes it can be very, very beneficial to look at the tab. It's very, very simple, very, very helpful. Downfall of it is that it is very guitar centric. What I mean by that is that if anybody from outside the guitar world looks at it, they're not going to know what you're playing. They're going to have no idea what noises they're supposed to make on their instrument. If you play it, if you give them musical notation, which musical notation is 5 lines, 4 spaces. You put music notes on them, so quarter note, whole note, quarter rest, half rest, all of those things. If you show them that type of music, they can understand it. If you give a piano player, a trumpet player, a violin player, even if you give someone who plays what's called a bass clef instrument, so if you give like a double bass the music, it might take them a little bit because they read a different clef than you, so they read lower notes rather than the higher notes on a guitar usually, which usually uses the treble clef. So it might take them a little bit to figure it out, but they could figure it out. And if they play piano, they'll already know how to figure it out. It's just that when we get so used to playing one staff, like the treble clef or the bass clef, we have a hard time switching our brains to reading the other because we're so used to the one. Unless you practice it, in which case you'll probably be fine. Some other things about tab and notation. I personally think that teaching notation up front is one of the best things that you can do for young musicians. I think that if you give them something challenging, most of the time they are willing to try it out, and they're also young enough that they don't immediately retaliate with, I don't like this, I don't want to continue. They just take it as, oh, this is what music is. I didn't know this. And they just do what they're told, basically. They do what you tell them to. They might not like it, but I don't think that they would benefit from learning tab first over it. Now, if you have a student, maybe an older student, someone who is well seasoned in years of life, or a student that is still pretty young, maybe a teenager or a young college student, that they're not looking to become musically talented necessarily. They just want to play and have fun and learn maybe some songs that they love. maybe they listen to Avenged Sevenfold, and they're like, hey, I really want to learn how to play the guitar parts on that. Or maybe they listen to old Metallica, and they're like, yeah, I really want to learn how to play For Whom the Bell Tolls or something. That is a fantastic use of starting someone on tab. But if you find someone who wants or who needs to dig in musically, then start them on notation, I think. Now there are times where if you are teaching like a whole classroom or something, you could go one way or the other, really. If you wanted to teach them something quickly, teach them so that they're fast having fun, you might go with tab. If you're trying to teach them for understanding for future use, notation is definitely the way to go, because every other instrument that they will have to use, or if they sing in a choir or anything like that, they will end up needing notation. If you give them only tab, they're not going to know what they're doing. Now, that's not to say that tab is horrible. Again, tab is fantastic for learning things quickly. I would highly recommend teaching both eventually, but it's really going to depend on the student or students that you have and the situation you're in. I taught high school guitar, and for what I was wanting to do, my goal was to prepare the students for the potential of college. So what I did was I taught them notation, and then I taught them basically anything else that they wanted to learn. I taught them individual songs. We used the guitar Frederick Node book for classical guitar, and I used the red sight reading book for level 1 for some sight reading examples and stuff for them, so that they really, really understood notation. And to this day, like, I still get some of the students, they tell me, hey, like, you taught me how to read music. Like, I know how to do that now. So it's beneficial. If you just teach tab, don't expect them to do much else with it. Now, if that's all they want, that is perfect. If all they want to do is learn what they want and they don't really care to branch out much, it's fantastic. Tab can also be a great use if you are learning how to transcribe music. Because if you're just trying to write something down saying like, how do I play this, I'm listening to something, it can get daunting if you're writing musical notation if you're not used to it. However, if you're telling someone, hey, I want you to listen and I want you to transcribe this and I want you to figure out what you play, tab is really, really simple and easy to write down. Most of the time, there's not a lot of note duration in tab. What I mean by that is it doesn't tell you how long to hold the note. It just tells you this is where you put your finger to play the note. So it can be rough, but it gets the point across, especially when they're first learning something like that. Now again, music notation is just I love it. That's what I love. But there's definitely a place for tab, and I still learn stuff from tab all the time, especially if when a student asks me to learn something fast or right on the spot. Most of the time I'll just look at tab because it's really easy to read on guitar. Now if I'm playing the piano or something, you can't do that. However, I can look at something for guitar on musical notation, so having a music staff, having that kind of thing, and I can play that on piano. sense. So the overall, I say yes. Should you teach one or the other? Yes. You should teach them both eventually. If you have youngsters, I would say up to like 12, maybe even 13 years old, teach them notation. Now, if you don't know notation, obviously you can't teach them that. If you don't know how to read tab and you learned by ear, you're not going to be able to do that either, and that's okay. I would highly recommend learning both. If you know one but you don't know the other, learn the other. It is beneficial not just for you but for your students, because you will have students bring up music and show you, hey, I want to play this, but I could only find the tab for it. Now, when I taught high school guitar, I would have them bring up stuff that had musical notation. If it had the tab, that was fine, but I brought it up that had musical notation specifically because I was trying to get my more advanced students ready to be able to go to college. I wanted them prepared and be able to knock out Music Theory 1, maybe even Music Theory 2 pretty easily. That was just my goal in mind. Now, for my individual students, it really depends. I had students who already knew how to play violin and piano, and I was not able to teach them music notation, really, because they already knew it. So what I did with them, I gave them a lot of music that both either had musical notation, and I taught them how to read tabs so they could learn other things. I branched them out in that aspect. And I also had a student that was very young, but they had a goal in mind of going to a specific school that you had to audition for. And for them, I spent time teaching them music notation because I wanted them to be able to get into that school. It was middle school, but it was a middle school that they needed to audition to get into the guitar program for. And I spent a lot of time with them learning that. We didn't work on tab very much at all. I think I showed them how to read some chords so they could read chord charts, but we omitted the tab for that. So it really depends. If you're doing individual students, it is really case by case and based on your knowledge, obviously. If you don't know both, then you can't teach both. But besides that, I would also base it on who you have, because if you have 20 kids that in a classroom that you have to teach guitar to, you are going to need to learn, how do I teach all of these kids the same thing that I want to teach them? And you have to have goals for those kids. You have to have your personal goals, and you have to know what they want to do also. Now, if you're in a school like I was, you're the one who figures that out. Now, you can ask them and figure out what they like, what they want to do, and teach them stuff that they would want to learn, as I did. I even made an arrangement or two just to appease my students and get them involved and get them enjoying it, and they had a blast with it. And that's what it's about, is not just making it accessible, but making it fun, even if it's the hard stuff. Even if they're like, I don't know how to read music, so what? Everyone can learn it, and just make it fun. Make it so that they enjoy what it is. If they're like, well, I already know how to read music, but I don't know how to read tab. Well, first off, tab is a lot easier to read, so say, hey, I guarantee you can do it. And then make it fun for them. Give them something that challenges them, but that doesn't challenge them so much that they're scared of it. Well, this is the drive that I have. Thanks for listening to my talk about tab and notation. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more. Comment if you have questions about guitar teacher stuff. And I'll see you guys next time.